So welcome to round one. I played against darthkid, and darthkid usually plays Delver decks. In the past, he played Blue Red Delver and Grixis when it was useful to play it. So, Inigo, do you know this player?
Yeah, I think it's familiar, the name. I don't remember the archetype, but if it's usually a grinder, it's
Yeah,
either a specialist from a deck or a delver player. So,
yeah, yeah. We see him very often in the challenges. So,
Mhm.
and he also uses modern showcase prestige avatar. So he should probably be a good multi-format grinder. So
Yeah,
here, this is my starting hand against. I assumed also he was on Delver, and I was on the draw because he won the die roll, and I think that's a very solid hand against Delver. It's a bit
yeah,
clunky because of the three visionaries, but here you see the hand. I have two mana sources, and I have the way to find a one drop here to be more efficient in the early turns, and also have access to the Green Sun Zenith for the acceleration.
yeah. I like the hand.
Yeah. So here you see that the opponent
Yeah,
starts with the Watery Grave and the Ponder,
I
and
was going
then
to ask you that. I was going to ask you if you were considering maybe he would make the switch to the week of deck of the week, because if he is usually a tempo player, there are very good chances that he switched to the deck of the week, which is tempo also the same archetype.
yeah, I think that all totally makes sense, and I wasn't really sure that this player does it, but I also had it on my radar that some of the Delver players make the switch to the Shadow, especially as the Shadow deck is a bit more favored in the mirror, I would say, as you have access to the very efficient card there's Shadow, and it's very hard to destroy for the opponent's Delver deck. He can't be pyroblasted. Sometimes you can get it with an Unholy Heat, but nobody plays Unholy Heat at the moment. And the Shadow decks are also very able to just handle the opponent's Murktide regions. And with multiple Death Shadows, you have a very good clock against the Delver player.
Yes.
You should be a bit aware that you not get burned out with a couple of lightning bolts, but usually I would say if the Shadow player knows what he needs to do, then he's in a good spot to play around the lightning bolts. And I think it's totally important to play the Dash Shadow as a 4/4. But if you have 9 life, it's a 4/4. So, and from there you can just manage all of your life total.
Yeah.
But here, some of the Doomsday players are also playing the Watery Grave, but it's very obvious that the opponent most likely plays their Shadow at this situation. So here we drew the Natural Order, and then I think I wanted to get the Once Upon a Time Resolving to get more mana sources or to have one mana creature, and that's why I decided to play the land first. Um, Fetching also improves the chance of getting a better target or choose from different options. Um, Usually, if you want to increase the chance to get a land, you can wait with the fetching, but that's also a thing on its own, I would say. So if you want to give the opponent additional information, so you can play the Once Upon a Time right away. Maybe the opponent thinks that you don't have a land at all, but usually if I have only a couple of lands or just one land, I show that I have the land already, so they not really
No,
see
I think
or
here
believe.
makes here it makes total sense to fetch first, as you explained, to improve our chances of seeing more one drops, so we can make a better decision.
Yeah, but it's a
I
very good Once Upon a Time. Totally agree.
Yeah, very
And
hard.
it's the decision is very hard to do. So we have three very good options. I think that the Cradle and the Reclaimer and the also Shepherd all make sense.
Yeah,
But I
especially with the top
thought,
deck natural order.
yeah, and the Natural Order was the reason why I opted to get the Cradle. The Cradle is the additional mana source I wanted to have. So the next turns are very good planned. So here I want to play the Green Sun Zenith, and that's the one mana spell. And as I have the second land already, the next turn I would cast the Elvish Visionary anyway. So I think that getting the Cradle here to get up on mana and to have a good amount of mana makes totally sense, especially with a Nature Order in hand.
Yeah,
But all of
agree.
the other cards could have been reasonable here. I
I could
wouldn't
see taking the reclaimer also, but it is just a slower way of getting the cradle. So
no,
probably getting the cradle is
I think
fine.
the two best options here in this situation are the Shepherd and the Cradle, especially with the encounter ability.
Yeah, the
Um,
problem with
but the
Shepard
Reclaimer
and
doesn't
natural
really matter
order,
that much against Death Shadow because the Shadow outgrows the Reclaimer relatively easily, and they also have very good removal against it. But the encounter ability of the Shepherd makes the most sense to me to get.
yes, but the problem of the Shepherd I see is the mana, right? If we take the Shepherd, our hand has is just we have one turn one ramp and then all CMC choose and then the payoff, the big payoff, which is natural order. So
Yeah,
probably we will need a little help in the mana if that is the plan.
but also a very good thing to get with the Cradle is that usually if they don't have the him to Turek, then he can't discard the card. So if you get the Shepherd, he's able to discard it if he has a
Yeah,
discard spell or
absolutely
monster,
yes.
and he can't discard the Cradle. So I think that makes the most sense, but the second best choice, in my opinion, would be the Shepherd and then the Reclaimer. Then the second turn they
Wow.
didn't do anything except of just shocking themselves. And here I take another basic to be as resilient as possible. And here to be mana efficient for sure makes sense to just cast the 2-drop and not the Reclaimer into the Dryad Arbor. So we want to draw cards. Then they brainstorm in response and just let it resolve. And then they have the discard spell. And with the first discard spell, they take the Elvish Reclaimer.
Yeah, what did you read from them taking the reclaimer? Because definitely they saw the cradle
Yeah.
and they saw the natural order. So what you read here, Georg?
So the read here is that's very easy for me because I know what happened in the future. But here it's very clear that they have another answer to the natural
To
order,
the Yeah, exactly. So
and
counter magic, right?
they are able to counter that.
Hmm.
And they don't want me to get access to two reclaimers on the board because it's a very big creature, relatively fast, and so they don't want to need to handle more than one reclaimer, and that's the reason why they. So here is almost no world where I am able to resolve the natural order. Um, Even if I top decked the Shepherd, I couldn't have resolved the natural order through days or I didn't even be able to cast it. So he can wait one turn by either countering it or discarding it. But here I played another Visionary. I also played in today's because it wasn't really mattering that much if he has a daze here and countering that. But also, luckily, I had access to another land and didn't need to play the Cradle at this time. So here I can fetch for a Bayou and just cast the Reclaimer, and they Force of Will it and pitching a Murktide Regent, which is a very good for me
Uh,
because the Reclaimer didn't matter at all. So he didn't knew that I redrew the Glimpse, but countering the Reclaimer, I think with Delver it would make sense, but I don't think that it makes sense with Shadow.
Maybe
Like
they have
with
another Murktide in hand, because what Reclaimer represents here, apart from fetching lands, is fetching or pressure, is a Bojuka Bog. So maybe that's their plan. I don't know.
could be, but they don't have
The
the
second
mana,
blue source,
and
yeah.
they also played Brainstorm earlier, so they are Brainstorm
So
locked.
yeah, yeah,
Didn't
yeah.
notice that before, but now as we're talking about, they were Brainstorm locked, and they couldn't do anything in the next turns. Probably missing one additional mana here, and also they waited to use the Wasteland because they knew that I have the Cradle. But here it's very easy. Just
Yeah.
play the Glimpse of Nature, and the chance that we lose this game is almost 0%. So even if he's countering the Glimpse, I also have access to another Visionary, and then I resolve the Glimpse, play the Heritage Druid, and the opponent concedes because
Wow.
I would have drawn a couple of cards this turn.
Yeah, they know the rest of your hand, right? They know it's over.
Yeah. And if I draw Firewood Symbiote or Green Sun Zenith here, the game is basically over there. So can understand why the opponent scooped to just save
Mm.
him time. And the opponent also played a bit slow. He's at 15 minutes at this situation, and we had a couple of waitings in my upkeep and in different spots. And I assumed that the player was double queuing in the Pioneer
Yeah, I was gonna
showcase.
say that probably. This was a Sunday event,
Yeah, it's a Sunday event. So
then for sure,
it
yes.
was also the Pioneer Showcase Challenge, and then
Oh,
um, it made sense that the opponent was a bit slow in the beginning. So here we go to the sideboarding games. I just show how I sideboarded. So I thought that the priority to to prevent is getting a Plague Engineer on the battlefield, and also as I played the two Shriekmaw as the removal spells, I thought about to bring in the my own discard spells to prevent Plague Engineer hitting the battlefield, and it's also a way to just get rid of the or one of the Dead Shadows.
yeah.
Not really that good, but they are much slower than Blue Red Delver, and
Very
it
interesting
benefits.
here that you choose to go over the top of them by playing keeping the natural order package and progenitus. So I think this is a very interesting. This part is very interesting because I think a lot of games will be lost. Yes, uh, or will be lost. I think making your choice if you want to go low on your curve by playing without natural orders, or you want to go over them by playing natural order into progenitors. That's a very important decision to make when sideboarding. And I also think in this matchup, progenitors it shines a lot because our opponent plays a shadow deck. The progenitors probably will only need a single turn to win, not two swings.
Yeah, makes sense. And they also have access to Plague Engineers, so we have to basically plan on a low resource game. And Endurance is another way to do it on low resources, but when you look at the body, it's only a 3/4, and the opponent can have a Death Shadow, which is a 6/6, so doesn't really compete with the opponent's or the most of the opponent's threat. And as they don't play DRC, they have too few access to the flying creatures or the creatures they are relying on the graveyard. So as you
Yeah,
said, I think this is a better plan to go for the progenitors. And yeah, we usually bring in the discard spells against other black decks like ninjas, and yeah, I thought that could be a way, but uh, here the opponent is on the play and starts with his Thoughtseize, discarding my What did you think about the starting hand, by the way? So I
It's not
redrew.
it's not the best if our plan is to go over the top by um progenitus. I think this is not the best hand, but I think it's a hand I will keep because it has mana elves, glimpse, and shepherd, so I think it's a must keep.
Okay, yeah, I redrew the glimpse. I didn't have the glimpse in the opening hand, but as you said, I think we had enough mana and we had enough of creatures, so not really a reason to mulligan that hand. And we are also able to top deck a couple of the good cards, and especially because they play discard spells, I think it's a resilient hand because the opponent doesn't really had that good targets to discard, except of the Elizaro Shepherd, but it's also very easily replaceable here, and so it's okay hand, but I don't want to mulligan that hand. And here they play him to Turak, and discarding Virtual Rangers and the Bayou. So here I was very low on mana suddenly.
Yeah.
Earlier I had a good amount of mana, and if I had untapped with the Virtual Rangers, I could have set up a very good Glimpse turn. But okay, that's a bit unrealistic. But here,
So strong here the him, right?
yeah, I would say that the him could have, no, the him couldn't have targeted or hit that good in this situation because most of the cards were replaceable. I think that they didn't hit the glimpse was good for me to have a
Yeah.
good way to create card advantage. Um, if they just hit him and the land or him and the creature, sorry, glimpse and the land or glimpse and the creature, it would be way worse for me, especially because they can also have access to Plague Engineer. And if I just play all my elves, they can just wipe the board with the Plague Engineer if they have already access to the card. But here I redrew the natural order, as we already told about. We totally capable of top decking very good cards. So if they didn't disrupt here, there could also be a chance to um, set up a good glimpse turn and then cast a natural order probably next turn. So here I decided to use the glimpse immediately. Um, yeah, the reason was for sure to because I have access to the natural order, and with that I'm able to set up a kill in the next turns. So I'm not really sure. It's not the best use of the Glimpse of Nature here because we only have one creature in the hand, but we are also able to create an additional mana with the Virtual Rangers.
Hmm.
But
Yes, I think.
if I only cast the Heritage Druid, I run maybe into a Plague Engineer, or if I do nothing, I think it's a waste of the turn. I could have waited an additional turn and just attacked for one, but I thought I want to set up here turn, and if I hit a one drop and this resolves, I have three elves on the battlefield, and then there's a good chance that maybe in the next turn I'm able to cast a natural order.
Yeah, I think I also you don't want to keep a lot of action cards in your hand against a deck so heavy on these cards. So I think I agree with your choice of cycling the glimpse here.
Exactly. And then they cast Daze. They just dazed the glimpse and didn't make sense for me to pay, so I just let it count it. And then I played the Heritage Druid. So that was totally okay for me because the glimpse wouldn't have mattered that much, but they were set a bit back on the mana, and then next turn they weren't able to play Black Engineer. So here they just have the Wasteland, and I drew the Alazaro Shepherd, which was a very good draw for me.
Yeah, very good draw.
So here with the Shepherd, um, in next turn, there is a very good chance that in the next turn, if he doesn't destroy it immediately, I am able to search for Progenitus. So then I accidentally tapped the mana first, and then I decided, okay, I just can attack, and then play it in the second main phase. Not really sure why he destroyed it. So then I played the Shepherd, and here they have cards in their graveyard, and then they set up the Murktide, which is a 7/7. But it's
Pretty
not
big. Yeah.
pretty big, yeah. But it's not that um, difficult or not that strong like in Delver, because if you play against Delver, you have to expect to have less time. As you see, I have 20 life here. Okay,
Yeah, those are
it's still a
three
3 turn
turns.
clock, but usually against Delver it's only a 2 turn clock. But
Yeah.
having 3 turns here is totally okay for me, and especially with Nature Order in my hand, I'm totally
Uh-huh.
capable of
And
winning.
also what we mentioned, right? They are below 10, so a possible progenitus here is lethal in one swing. So
Yes.
that is very good.
Either that, and also because I only have 9 life, then probably just a Greater Hoof alone is already lethal in the same turn. So I can have 2 turns here, and then I need to resolve the Natural Order. So they just attack with the Murktide and don't do anything else. And here there is a problem with the Green Sun Zenith. First, I thought about to search for Heritage Druid.
Heritage, but we don't have any more.
Exactly. We boarded out 2 of the Heritage Druids, and then he destroyed my only one left. And if I had access to the Heritage Druid, I would probably just search the Druid by tapping those and then try to resolve the Natural Order next turn. But not really possible. And getting other creatures could be also a way to get Elvish Reclaimer.
Yeah, I think
Elvish,
that's the
Elvish
way to
Reclaimer.
go.
That should have been the choice, but I decided to go for Dryad Arbor.
Right, Arbor. Yeah, also
Dryad
makes
Arbor
sense, right? You
also
want mana, basically.
increases the amount of mana. Um,
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that because here you are basically mana hungry. You want to be you want to make glimpse a life card in your hand by top decking any creature and having already some mana on board. You can do a decent glimpse, and if you top deck another land, maybe a cradle, you could threaten an actual order next turn. So
yes,
it's
and
a good call. Yeah.
the problem is that the Elvish Reclaimer doesn't even help in this situation because um, he attacks me for 7, so I go to 6 life next turn, and then I can't use the Reclaimer to get the Cradle in time. So, but for sure, if I had access to another Heritage Druid, I would have searched for that.
Yeah,
But here
me
in
too.
this situation, I needed to attack and then get the Dryad Arbor and hope to top deck an additional mana source, and then being able to resolve the Natural Order. But the opponent has the Wasteland here. But still, if we top decking a Cradle, then we can resolve the Natural Order and attack him for 7 if we just sacrifice the Birch Law. But okay, the Murktide was a really fast clock, and in the
Yeah,
next turn I just top decked the Progenitors here.
really unfortunate they had that last wasteland there.
Yeah, they had a very solid hand if you see all of the cards they were casting. So they just played Thoughtseize into him, then dazing my play, playing Snuff Out on my creature, and following by the Murktide Regent. So the Murktide Regent only came on turn 4, so it was quite slow, but still a very good way to disrupt else enough, I would say.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
if I can top deck another Cradle, there's a very good chance to win that. So then we go to game 3.
At this point, one question: at this point, do you regret your approach, your sideboarding approach? Do you maybe think have second thoughts about it? Like maybe you thinking, maybe I should have boarded more like Delver like, or you are comfortable with your sideboarding?
No, not really. So, okay. In game 3, I decided to change it a bit.
Hmm. Interesting.
In game 3, I decided to take out the sword seizes again and be more proactive, to have
Yeah.
more
And
elves
you brought
in the
back the
bottom.
bog, the Bojuka bog, to deal with Murktide because I think it's in your mind right now.
Yeah, usually I wanted to stick with the plan, but I kept the nature order package as you see here, and I
Hmm.
just had access to one endurance and one Bojuka bog to be able to delay the Murktide if it's necessary. So
Yes,
there
and
was a
you
good
keep
chance.
also all the druids in.
I kept all the druids in, especially after the situation where I just needed one druid. Probably
Yes.
that makes sense to um, change the sideboarding then again.
Oh
So
my
the
god.
first hand was a bit too fast, but it was. I can restart it if you want. Um,
Yeah,
the
please.
first hand was, I think, too much lands here. So it was 5 lands and only 2 creatures in the Green Sun Zenith. Not really sure, so I could have started with the Reclaimer and kept the Zenith and should have played it probably on turn 3, but I think that's way too much lands here. So, but then we see the second hand is exactly the opposite. So I have enough creatures, but only one land and the Britannites. But it's a very easy bottom. But I didn't want to go to 5 cards here, so I decided to keep it. And yeah, I needed to top deck a land in the next 2 draws, I would say, and then it's a decent chance to have a good chance in the game. So I put the Presentus on the bottom and started with the Allosaurus Shepherd to disable their ways to interact with me, especially when I mulligan and I'm low on resources with a low amount of mana. Then I thought that disabling their counter spells makes sense to me to be able to progress the board.
Yeah, I don't think I think they only run 3 snuff outs or 2 some lists. So definitely their main way of interacting with our plan is counter magic. They have more counter magic than removal. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I also think so. And also another reason for me is always if they handle the Shepherd relatively early, then I'm able to keep the Elvish Reclaimers, and the Elvish Reclaimers are also very good if they have access to Plague Engineer on round 3. So
Yeah.
I think that is a must destroy. He need a must removal for it, and if he doesn't have the removal, then he can't really interact with me. So it has more advantages to start with the Shepherd, especially as we are playing 4 now, so we can just live with it if he has a removal, and he can't have that much removal. And here the perfect draw to top deck the Cradle, and I just need to hope that he doesn't have a Hymn to Turak and hits the Cradle, but he played for 2, and I also thought, okay, that's
Oh,
an Hymn to Turak,
is
but then
a
he played Powder Keg.
yeah, the all the engineered explosives.
It's a bit like engineered explosives, but it has an advantage most of the time against 8 cast because it destroys the constructs, the chalices, can destroy the chalices, and it can also destroy the opponent's lands if you just use it for 0. But here the opponent, you see that later, they probably misunderstood the card. And the difference between Powder Keg and a card like Ratchet Bomb is that Powder Keg only destroys artifacts and creatures.
Very
And,
sweet.
and that will come up later. So here I top decked the Green Sun Zenith, and then I decided I had a couple
Hmm.
of lines here. I didn't want to
Yeah.
commit too many 1 mana creatures because he had the Powder Keg, and I didn't want to play any one of the 1 mana creatures because I thought that he didn't answer the Allosaurus Shepherd already. So if he doesn't have a Plague Engineer, he is usually forced to use it for the Shepherd. And also I have the Green Sun Zenith here and 4 mana, so I can search for Christ. And that led the opponent to misunderstood to the card. So I searched for Christ and milled.
So powerful, the Grist.
Yeah, very good start. So here, even if they have Black Engineer, I'm totally able to handle it immediately with a Christ
Yeah.
by the Insect or the Reclaimer. And I have only one mana creature here on the board, and they could use the Powder Keg to handle the Reclaimer if I try to resolve a problematic spell, but they didn't decide to do that. They just wastelanded me and passed the turn. So probably they waited for me to try to cast a very good powerful spell. Probably I could have baited the um, activation by the glimpse, but here I decided to just wait. And then
Yeah, I think here you have to be patient, definitely.
yeah,
No, they have. They after all they are shadow deck,
yeah,
so
I'm so much ahead here in the spot, and especially now I can use the Christ. I have 4 mana on board, and the opponent has to do something. So here, then I just passed, and if they use the Powder Keg, I can still have a very good setup next turns. So here they decided to add a counter, and they probably, yeah, they believed that they can handle the Grist with it, but it doesn't work because it only destroys creatures and artifacts. So here we see then when he has this shadow on the battlefield and already
yeah,
2 counters on it, I can
you feel
produce more.
comfortable to play your one drops. Yeah,
Yes. And also wanted to reduce the impact if he had, for example, like Plague Engineer or so in the next rounds. So
it is weird. It is weird that he went up to 2 counters on the K. It doesn't. It
yeah,
only
it is
hits
weird, but he wanted to handle the
to
Grist
get
because
Grist.
he
Yeah.
can't handle the Grist anyway because he doesn't play Lightning Bolts, and he needed to handle it. If Grist stick on the battlefield, he loses, but he didn't realize probably that this doesn't destroy any Planeswalkers. It
Oh,
only
that's why you
destroys
mentioned it. Yeah.
artifacts and creatures. But there is also a card like Wretched Bomb or Engineered Explosives, and those are able to destroy Planeswalkers as well. But Powder Keg doesn't, because in this time back then there weren't any Planeswalkers already, and this doesn't even destroy enchantments to be mentioning. So here they just proceed with a dress down, and then this gets 13-13. That's also a very good interaction with their deck to just pump it unexpectedly. And then they use the Force of Will to counter the Glimpse, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And then here I play 2 more creatures, sacrificing 1 insect and attack the opponent um,
Yeah, getting full value
with
out of
3.
Grist before it
They're
gets dealt
already,
with.
yeah, they're already dead on board. Even if they have Plague Engineer, I have 2 of the Elvish Reclaimers and the insect, and they need to trade, uh, so they are already dead. And here they go to 3, and then they're sacrificing the Powder Keg. They believed that they handled the Grist then, but then after they realized they just drew the card and screwed.
Yeah. GG's.
Yeah, so that's a bit luck to have because the opponent wasn't used to play this version of the deck and probably didn't ever played with Powder Keg before.
Yeah, probably he just net decked the list. Yeah.
Yeah, and he expected that it's possible to handle a Planeswalker with it. And but with Christ, it's also not that easy because Christ is a creature with it in your deck or in the graveyard, so and on the stack as well, but only if it's on the battlefield, then it's a Planeswalker. So, but for sure that was a mistake of the opponent. But I played around the impact of Powder Keg here anyway, so they didn't get the full value to get multiple creatures. So I baited him to go to the 3 counters, I would say, and it worked very well. So I would say, do Do you have any additional information about this
No, I think you
game you
were.
have?
I think you identified very correctly when to slow down the pace of the game. Once you resolved the grid, there was no more need to commit more to the board, even before the keg. So usually Shadow they go to a pretty low life total by themselves. So I could see a Grist take over the game by itself, especially if it's one from very early in the game when you have a lot of insects to sacrifice. You have already plused a few times. You can minus once on a Morktide maybe if you need to. So yeah, definitely here Grist very good and very good from you, Jörg, to slow down the pace of the game once Grist was in play.
Yeah, thanks. So, but here we also have to note that I started with a one-lander and I had
True.
a really good portion of luck to just top deck the fetch land then. And with the Visionary, I found the Gia's Cradle. So if I stick with one land here, we have a total different game, and he probably has good ways to disrupt. But here I was too efficient, and the other Shepherd did a good work. As you saw, they probably have the Force of Will in the starting hand, and yeah, with this play I can just reduce the amount of efficient cards from his opening hand, and that makes sense to start with a Eltharo Shepherd, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So if
I
you
think
want to note anything, we can go to game two.
yeah, that's fine. Let's go into.